arrested by order of the Supreme Court and later removed from power by Congress for violating the Constitution. It is less well known that as president, according to an electoral council official I interviewed in, I cannot pronounce that, this major city in Honduras 2 weeks ago, Mr. Zelaya had refused to transfer the budgeted funds as required by law to the council for its preparatory work. In other words, he didn't want a free election. Mr. Chavez didn't want one either. During the Zelaya government, the country had become a member of Mr. Chavez's Bolivarian Alternative for Americas, which includes Cuba, Bolivia, Ecuador, and Nicaragua. If power changed hands, Honduran membership would be at risk. Last week, a government official told me that Honduran intelligence has learned that Mr. Zelaya had made preparations to welcome all the ALBA presidents to the country that the night of his planned June referendum. For a 10,000-strong blowout celebration, the official added, was on order. So, obviously, Hugo Chavez and other countries had their hand in this. And this seems to have, they had their hand in this. It was a little tricky. He didn't want a free election. But luckily, the people of Honduras, luckily they stuck by the Constitution. This is really a big deal. It's not really covered that much in our media. It's not really covered much in the news. A lot of people in this country don't know, but it's a big deal. It's a big deal because freedom is always under threat. And, you know, there might be a time, I know it's hard to believe, but there might be a time in this country where we'll have to do the same thing. Hopefully not anytime soon, but we'll have to do the same thing. Hopefully we'll be just like Honduras, and we'll have to stand up because freedom is always under the threat of tyranny. But it has to be fought back. And, you know, a lot of times it comes in through the back door. You know, this president was elected fairly at first. It happens. Hugo Chavez was elected fairly at first. Cash was elected fairly at first. Hitler was actually elected fairly at first. But we can't let them gain too much power. Their powers have to be limited to their constitutions. Just like the Congress and president over here, their powers should be limited to their constitution. But there's already a precedent being set over here, going way beyond their constitutional authority. I went through the provisions of the Congress, powers of the Constitution, and there is absolutely no authority to do any of what they're trying to do with healthcare or cap and trade. So, I just thought I would share with you that it's a big deal. When I come back, we have the $300 million Louisiana Purchase. No, I'm not talking about the famous Louisiana Purchase that Jefferson made to double the size of the Americas after the Revolution, you know, when he was president. No, this is much slicker, much more devious, and things that I thought Obama elected on changed. What this is about, this $300 million Louisiana Purchase I'm going to talk about in the next segment, it was stuff that Obama said he was going to change. He was supposed to be the symbol of change. His government, he was going to stop this kind of stuff. And it's not happening. Gee, what a shock. Who predicted that? Me. You are listening to the Michael Yaffee program, wnsc.ucf.edu, online radio. You are listening to the Michael Yaffee program, wnsc.ucf.edu, online radio. That was Creed from the new CD Full Circle. So, it was heart tattooed on my sleeve. So the Washington Times here is an editorial called the $300 million Louisiana Purchase. Yeah, this is not the Louisiana Purchase, the great Louisiana Purchase that Thomas Jefferson did to double the size of the American colonies back when he was president. No, this is something much worse, much more corrupt, not good like the original Louisiana Purchase was. Senator Mary Landrieu, Louisiana Democrat, provided one of the last 2 votes needed to bring the government health care takeover to the Senate. She didn't even blush about selling her vote. I'm not going to be defensive, and it's not a $100 million fix. It's a $300 million fix. Ms. Landrieu bragged on November 21st. This gross windfall will flood into her state through added benefits in the health care bill. This is government at its worst. I would agree. Ms. Landry, big payday shows how useless the Congressional Budget Office cost estimates are. Right now, each dollar that Louisiana's Medicaid program spends is matched by $1 in federal funds. If Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid's bill passes, each $1 Louisiana spends will be matched by $4 in federal funds. The CBO, falling back on its typical static analysis, assumes that both population coverage and Medicaid payments per beneficiary will remain unchanged. Neither assumption is reasonable. So what happened here? What happened here, I'm asking you, my audience. Oh, by the way, if you want to instant message me during the show and comment, you can. Radio WNSC is the screen name. Don't forget you can do that. Basically, they needed this vote. They needed the vote from the Louisiana Democrat who was hanging on the edge. She wasn't sure she was going to vote for this, and probably with good reason. But how did they get to her to vote for it? No, they didn't get to her to vote for it based on principle. Convincing her of the principle and the good of the subject, if they really truly believed it. No, forget. That's not how Congress works. No. They paid her $300 million. Now, they didn't pay her directly. They paid her state. They flooded her state with money, which will help her get reelected, right? Oh, look at all this money I gave to Louisiana. And then she's bragging about it. Yeah, I took a $300 million bribe. Yeah, so what? No doubt. Yes, this was the leaders in Congress, but no doubt it was supported by the president. See, I thought the president came into office based on change, hope, a new government. Stop with the political bickering. Have a real discussion, real transparency. Yeah, it doesn't seem like this stuff is stopping. You know, if the president were to stick by his guns and stick by his principle, he said, I'm not signing that bill with that in there. We're not going to have a bill full of pork and full of bribes. Basically what they are. Basically, this is a bribe. And we know it. We're not stupid. The American people know it. But they do it anyways. They did it with the stimulus package. Obama didn't seem to care then. I thought this was the administration of change and hope. Nope, the corrupt system goes well. It's not even corrupt. It's just the way it goes. Founding fathers would not agree with that. We cannot have these kind of bribing. Why not vote based on principle? So people are just going to hold out votes, not because they disagree with it, not because they want to vote based on their principles, based on their core beliefs, based on their constituency's beliefs. No, they're going to wait until they get money, extra money in the bill. Pork, which is basically bribes. A similar experiment occurred for Alaska after the 1997 Balanced Budget Act. The act increased the rate at which the federal government matched Medicaid spending from $1 for each $1 spent by the state to $1.50 for each dollar spent. While the increase was nowhere near as bloated as what is being proposed for Louisiana, the effect was dramatic. Alaskan legislators used the discretion allowed them to increase who was covered in the beneficiary payments per recipient. Per capita Medicaid spending went from growing at the national average to growing at more than 3 times the national rate. We can only assume that this increased Medicaid use increased overall demand for health care in the last frontier and thus raised health care costs for everyone else in the state. If a 50% increase in matching payments had this effect for Alaska, it's hard to imagine what a 400% increase will do to Louisiana's Medicaid expenditures. Nearly 30% of Louisiana's residents are already enrolled in Medicaid. Even if the number of those eligible were somehow magically not to change, the potential cost of expanded benefits is huge. It boggles the mind that this legislation is being sold as a way to get costs under control. So not only is there a Louisiana senator basically taking a bribe to get a vote so they can get the votes they needed to bring this thing to the Senate, no. It's going to actually end up costing more. Same thing happened in Alaska in the Balanced Budget Act. Medicaid spending went from $1 for each dollar spent by the state to $1.50 for each dollar spent. And don't forget, not only that, but we're just bribing the states too. You got basically the federal government's like, oh, well, you can't afford it. Oh, we'll pay for that. Forget federalism. Forget, states having power of their own constituency. The federal government is getting more and more power, central authority.